I thought I would come and share some information that I've learned about breastfeeding. I've been breastfeeding for almost 17 months after failing my breastfeeding journey with my first baby. I say failing my breastfeeding journey with my first baby. I don't know why. That's not really like a good thing to say. But I stopped breastfeeding with my first baby around 2 weeks because I was told she wasn't getting or gaining the weight that she should have, being that she didn't reach back to her birth weight. So I gave up. And then I got pregnant again about 7 months later and was determined not to allow myself to fail my second breastfeeding journey because I felt like God was giving me a second chance. My first baby was born with a tongue tie, and I was told she wasn't latching properly, so we got it corrected. But the latch still wasn't good, which means that she wasn't getting as much milk as she should. When I had my second baby, I made sure that number one, we latched after birth. No question asked. We latched after birth, and happily we didn't have any issues with latching. Second, I pumped every 2 hours. Telling you personally that pumping is not easy. Breastfeeding is not going to be an easy journey. But if you stick to it, give yourself grace, it'll work out for you. So I was pumping every 2 hours. Even after I pushed the whole baby out, I was pumping every 2 hours around the clock. I was waking up in the hospital asking for a pump. I was, of course, only getting colostrum out because I just gave birth, and I was only getting a few mLs. But keep in mind that when a baby is first born, their stomach is the size of a cherry, which means they don't need a lot of milk to get full. But of course, I was still pumping around the clock because I was determined to get a good milk supply. Now, by the third day of being home, I woke up and my chest was hurting so bad. Keep in mind, I was still latching my baby, so the milk started to come in, and I had no idea of how this would feel. I literally was in so much pain. I felt like I don't know what I felt like. Honestly, I can't even explain it right now, but I couldn't get up. And at that point, I didn't even want to breastfeed. I didn't want to pump. I told my husband to give the baby a formula bottle. And I don't regret it because you have to put yourself first sometimes, especially on a breastfeeding journey. You have to put yourself first. That is important. Give yourself some grace, okay? It's not easy, as I said. But my milk started to come in, and I took a hot shower when I was finally feeling up to it. And I then pumped right after I took a shower, and I pumped 8 ounces. No lie. I probably went without pumping maybe 4 or 5 hours, but I pumped 8 ounces. And when I tell y'all, I was so proud of myself because I put in work for that, honestly. Now, even though I was still latching my baby and I was still pumping every 2 hours around the clock, I did this probably for 2-3 months because I wanted to make sure I had that supply. And then I started taking supplements. I did start taking supplements early. I did take supplements from Liquid Gold Mamas. And with me taking supplements and pumping around the clock, I was able to pump an additional 12 to 16 extra ounces, which means I was able to build my freezer stash. Now, I'm not promoting you to build a freezer stash. If that's what you want to do, then you do it. But I'm not promoting anyone to pump for the freezer. That's number one. My goal was to maintain my milk supply and have enough milk in the freezer until my baby was 1 year old, which I was able to do. But then I found out that I can donate my milk, which means, of course, I wanted to donate my milk, especially if I had extra milk. I now pump about 4 to 5 times a day. On the weekends, I only pump 4 times. During the week, I pump 5 times a day. I power pump almost every single pump, literally every single pump. And I will tell you all about what is power pumping. We'll get into that. But key factors that I want you to take away from this video is, number one, breastfeeding is not easy. Give yourself some grace, okay? If you are depressed and stressed, your milk supply is going to show that. You cannot stress yourself out. It's okay if you decide to stop breastfeeding your baby after 2 weeks, after a month, or whatever. Number two, stay consistent and give yourself a schedule, okay? I now pump every 4 hours, and I do not wake up in the middle of the night to pump. That's just not my thing. But it is recommended to wake up in the middle of the night and pump. Another thing that I'll be talking about later with pumping, something to give you something to give you to look forward to. We'll talk about flange sizes. We'll talk about pumps. We'll talk about things you need to pump, items that's recommended to pump. We'll also talk about pumping bras. We'll talk about how to store your milk. We'll talk about pump parts. We'll talk about my eating habits and things of that nature that helped me maintain my supply. So if you don't take anything else from this video, I want you to know, wherever you are in your breastfeeding journey, you're doing great. Give yourself some grace. I've said that numbers of times, I know, but give yourself some grace. This journey is not easy. I've probably wanted to give up so many different times, but now that I'm so far into the game, I most likely will stop pumping when my baby turns 2, which means I'll stop donating, of course. But in the meantime, in between time, if you want to continue on this series and hear more about what I have to say about breastfeeding, any recommendations, make sure you click the subscribe button and make sure you like this video, and we'll go from there.